Hi folks, Venus goes retrograde tomorrow on March the 1st and stays retrograde till April the 13th. And Venus goes retrograde in Aries and retrogrades into Pisces at the end of March and spends all of April, for all intents and purposes, in Pisces. Retrograde for the first 13 days and then direct for the next 13 odd days. So I have done a number of videos on Venus retrograde, and I will place a link to probably the one I did at the beginning of the year that was the most comprehensive at the end of this video. You can also just kind of go through, I've done videos on Venus conjuncting Saturn, which is a really important conjunction related to this Venus retrograde. Venus conjuncted Saturn on January the 18th, and when Venus retrogrades into Pisces, a few days before she goes direct, she conjuncts Saturn, and then when she goes direct, she conjuncts Saturn again. So that conjunction with Saturn is a very important kind of linchpin for this Venus retrograde, the conjunction with Saturn in Pisces. There are two things in all the content that I've posted. So there's videos on Venus conjuncting Saturn, there's videos on Venus going retrograde. I brought up a quick summary of Venus retrograde in the weekly overview that I did earlier this week. Probably the most important video to watch this week, if you have not already, is the Pisces new moon video from a few days ago, because that sets up an important set of energies for the rest of the next 28 odd days till the end of March. It even covers some of the astrology in April, and the sign of Pisces is the most important sign astrologically in 2025. And so it kind of goes through that as well. So if you were to prioritize videos, although I think I'm saying that only because I ended up posting a fair amount of content over the last 10 days or so. And then after that, I would make sure I also watch the weekly overview, but it's a Pisces new moon video that's the most important. Now, you might say, well, okay, then why am I watching this video? I am going to do a very brief Venus retrograde summary, but more than that, there were 2 points related to Venus retrograde that I have not yet mentioned, and sometimes this happens simply because, of Venus retrograde along with the Mercury retrograde while the eclipses are going on. There's so many weightier things to discuss that all the minutiae and a couple of points that typically with a Venus retrograde we would want to share and talk about and just mention. They are relatively on the lighter side. But they're an essential part of Venus retrograde, and they would typically get mentioned. This time around, given the sheer weightiness of everything that is going on in March and April, have not gotten mentioned. And it's been nagging at me, so I thought I should do this video because I don't know if this information is going to be useful to any of you, or to some of you perhaps it might be relevant. And also I just feel a kind of sense of responsibility towards giving you the information from a completion perspective. So in this video, we're going to cover these 2 relatively lighter points that so far haven't been covered about Venus retrograde, and I'll do a brief summary on the Venus retrograde period. Place a link at the end of this video to the more detailed Venus related video that I did earlier this year. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. I am still offering the $50 30 to 40 minute single topic reading, a reading focused around a single area or single topic, and then the $100 60 to 75 minute reading related to the astrology of February, March, and April, the Venus and Mercury retrogrades and the eclipses and how they would apply to your birth chart. Memberships are also now available. Thank you to everyone who has joined. 5 out of 12 of the rising sign specific videos are in the membership area. If you are not interested in being a member, that's totally fine. Nothing's changing on this channel. I'm still providing the content. But if you want sign specific content, right now the videos I'm doing this week are related to the new moon in Pisces for each rising sign. I am not one of those astrologers who thinks that you should watch the video for your sun sign and your moon sign and your Venus sign and your rising sign. If you want to do that, I'm not going to object because you're watching more of my videos. The one you need to watch, or whenever you're reading a general horoscope in a newspaper, in a magazine, read the one for your rising sign, for your ascendant, not your sun sign. Because the way those horoscopes are written places the sign that it's for in the first house. And so if you read it for the rising sign, it'll actually be for the layout of your chart, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, just try it out. So memberships are available. If you're interested in the discounted readings, my email address is in the description box below. You can email me there and we can figure out a time and logistics and all that kind of stuff. If you're interested in exploring becoming a member to get those specific readings and the astrology instruction videos that I'm going to add there, you can, there's a link in the description box that allows you to do so. You can even try out a membership for a month or 2 or 3, and then if it's working for you, great. If it's not, you can cease becoming a member. I'll let you decide what that is. But that's roughly what's going on. By Sunday, I will have all the rising sign videos done related to the Pisces new moon. And next week, both on this channel from a general perspective for the content that is available for free, and on the membership side, I'm going to put my focus on the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. On this channel, this is the video I'm doing today on Venus retrograde. On Sunday or Monday, I'm going to place the weekly overview for next week. I'm then going to do a quick video that's a kind of a recap of Mars going direct. Mars is still pretty slow. And then after those 3 videos, I'm going to do the video on the lunar eclipse in Virgo on March the 13th. Now, you all know that I typically do my full moon videos about 48 odd hours before a full moon. I'm going to do the full moon lunar eclipse video next week because for me, when it's an eclipse, and it's typically a couple of eclipses follow each other, the full moon lunar eclipse on March the 13th, the new moon solar eclipse in Aries on March the 29th, it's kind of a 4-week eclipse period, and we're going to start to feel that eclipse portal and that eclipse energy, I would say starting about March the 6th. So I want to get a little bit ahead of that. It might be around March the 6th that I actually get that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo video out. So that's the content that's going to be available. Nothing, as I said, is changing on this channel. Now let's talk about, okay, so do not, those of you for whom this does not apply, don't laugh at me on these 2 particular points. But I think that the first one especially might seem very frivolous, but here it is. It's, as I said, it's been nagging at me all day to share it. Venus retrograde is a notorious time to make changes to your physical appearance. I told you, some of you are going to be like, really? This is why you're doing the video? Sometimes with Venus retrograde, some people may feel the urge to try something. So certainly bigger ticket items, astrologically speaking. Listen, you make the decisions for your life. I'm just giving you the astrological interpretation, and it may be a little different if you have Venus retrograde. So you're going to have to take responsibility for what you do and what you decide and how you do it, and you are welcome to ignore this information. But certainly bigger ticket items like plastic surgery, drastic appearance-related changes. If you have Venus direct in your birth chart, which the vast majority of us do, Venus retrograde periods, it is recommended not to make dramatic or drastic changes to even things like hair color and nail color and appearance and how you're wearing this and that, because the idea is that when a planet goes direct, you may feel differently about that change. Or in certain cases, the procedure may not, especially if you have Venus and Mercury direct in your birth chart, consider getting stuff done. Or even things like with Mercury retrograde, if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, consider things like, now, sometimes it cannot be helped. You need to get a surgery, you need to get a procedure. It's not even a cosmetic thing. I think in general, when Mercury is retrograde, the advice for people who have Mercury direct in their birth chart is just to kind of lie low on any dramatic action. When it's Venus retrograde, it can concern your appearance. It can also concern beautifying the home, Venusian activities of needing or wanting to make. And sometimes with Venus retrograde, something may just kind of strike us to strike out and do something new. The larger question, the concern is once Venus goes direct, are we going to feel good about it? You could make note of what it is that you want to do and what you'd like to try, and then let Venus go direct and see how you feel about things, by the end of April. by the beginning of May. And if it still holds and you want to try it out, go ahead and do it then. Again, make your choices and decisions as you need to. So when it comes to beautification, appearance related things, beautifying the house, decoration, caution is suggested when Venus is retrograde. Now, if you have Venus retrograde in your birth chart, again, I'm going to let you take responsibility for your actions here. You can see if you experiment. I'm certainly not, suggesting that anyone go in and do some big dramatic procedure. But if you get the urge, see if you have Venus retrograde in your birth chart, whether that haircut, or whether that nail color, or whether that t-shirt that you buy or pants that you buy, whether it's something that really suits you and you feel like it's a keeper. When you have a planet retrograde in your birth chart, a retrograde period in the skies, when that planet is retrograde in the skies, when it transits, it could be that you are more in sync with that energy. So that's something to check out. In general, with Venus retrograde, I would watch even things like purchasing luxury items, frivolous spending. And by that, I mean I'm at Starbucks and I typically get a cup of coffee, but all of a sudden I feel the urge to spend $9 on some fancy, that's a very mild kind of, but it's more like you go into Bloomingdale's and all of a sudden, or Macy's, or I don't even know if Macy's are around right now, but whatever, and we just watch luxury items, are very Venusian, fancy things. You may feel differently about them when Venus goes direct, if you have Venus direct in your birth chart. So Venus retrograde periods are notorious for that. The second thing that I'm going to mention is a little bit more serious, although not quite as heavy as a lot of the things that we've been talking about with the astrology of March and April. And that is Venus retrograde is also a notorious time to date or meet people or get carried away on some romantic or physical adventure. The idea again is that something may sweep you away or feel a certain way or feel like it has a certain momentum for the 6 odd weeks while Venus is retrograde. And then when Venus goes direct, it just fizzles out. Or you never hear from that person again. Or it just amounts to nothing. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't spend time with someone or go on a date or something? Because you never know. You could end up being friends or you know what? Screw the astrology and just check it out and see how you feel. But in my experience, I can feel a sneeze coming on, sorry. In my experience, trying to pursue something Venusian, and this is not necessarily getting hot and bothered by someone, although, I would just be careful. In general, this is more getting to know someone, actually going on a date. It's more Venusian, it's more connecting, it's more relationship, it's more exploring the relationship side. And when Venus is retrograde, if you meet someone or something seems to have a certain momentum, in my experience, the situations that feel consistent with what I'm saying is especially when people meet someone while Venus is retrograde and all of a sudden find themselves on a date and feel like, oh, I met someone, this is going somewhere, and this is going to be this, and this is going to turn into that, and then Venus goes direct, and it's just like, what the hell happened? That never went anywhere. I never heard from that person again, or all of a sudden we feel very differently about this, or whatever it is. If it's something where you've met someone while Venus is direct, and you go on a date while Venus is retrograde, you continue that, that I think, again, experiment with it and see. All I'm trying to say is don't lose your head. And if you meet someone or you like, just do what you need to do. Just know that when Venus is retrograde and then when it goes direct, especially if you have Venus direct in your birth chart, you may feel differently about a certain situation or certain momentum might just reverse itself. Now, if you have Venus retrograde in your birth chart, Is it possible that if you meet someone or go on dates while Venus is retrograde that it sticks? I've been doing these videos, by doing the membership channel now, I'm committing to like 12 videos, more videos a week. And I can feel my voice being impacted by the extra content. It's funny. There's a lot I'm learning this week about pacing myself and pacing videos and all that kind of stuff. So please be patient with me in that regard. But irrespective, those are two things that I want to mention about appearance and dating. The appearance one is light, but listen, I talked to someone once who had Venus direct in their birth chart and did something to their face while Venus was retrograde. And, as I said, for some reason I had the urge to share this. And, am I not going to get a haircut? Look at my hair while Venus is retrograde. No, I am. But I have Venus direct in my birth chart. I'm probably going to stick with the tried and true and just be like, no big change. Let's just do what we normally do. Not that it's going to, but if I have the urge to go in and just, do something completely unusual or shave it all off or, bleach it or something like that, it may be that by the time the end of April comes around, I might just really regret it or just hate it or can't wait until something is completely reversed or changed. Certainly on the spending front, I'll come to that in a second. But also, sometimes going on a date or meeting someone and it having its own momentum while Venus is retrograde is its own kind of fun. Because these things can really take on a kind of life of their own or have a certain flurry to them, have a certain devil may care, like they can have a momentum to them. But do it in the spirit of fun and games, getting to know someone, giving it a little bit of time, seeing if it actually has legs after April the 13th as you head to the end of April into May. And then you can see if you feel the same way and you guys are connecting in the same way, or if something has shifted or something has changed. Don't expect necessarily when Venus is retrograde for relationship or financial issues to. It's not a time to, it's a time to pull back if you have Venus direct in your birth chart. If you have Venus retrograde, you can experiment and see if appearance changes and dating or romantic things actually stick for you. Now, in general, I said this was going to be a relatively short video. So far, it is relatively short, at least for me. And both these things are fun to talk about. So there it is. In general, with Venus retrograde, and I know we've talked about this a lot, Venus retrograde is a time when you are making sure, Venus is asking you to make sure that your resources and your resource management, your finances, and your relationships are in alignment with where you're trying to go and where you want to go and what you value. Who is in the boat with you? Which relationships are important, which count, which have value, which align with where you're wanting to go, which are in the way, which are an expense, which are an energy leak. And similarly, when it comes to expenses and where your resources are going and where your money is going and how much is being spent here or there, Venus retrograde is going to ask the question and say, depending on where you're going and what sort of a life you're trying to lead, is this really necessary? What is the most effective way to use your resources and to be in the right relationships to help you move in the direction, or more importantly, live the life that you want to live and align that life with your values? So things may come up from a relationship perspective and a financial perspective that require review. And both Venus and Mercury, you've heard me say this multiple times, retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries. There's also this feeling that something in the Pisces part of the chart needs to be tied up and stabilized for now as a first phase of action and activity around stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart in 2025. The second and final phase is between September 25 and February 26. But something needs to be stabilized or sorted out in the Pisces part of the chart. Some sort of a crisis, some sort of a need for responsible and structured ambition, structured action in the Pisces part of the chart, so that once Venus and Mercury are direct and they move into Aries, and the new moon solar eclipse in Aries happens on March the 29th at that 9 or 10 degree mark, so that things can actually move forward and you are emotionally in a clearer space to build your future. So some part of this financial relationship review is tied to some of the activity around stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. And that's why looking at that new moon video or some of the content I've been posting about the Pisces part of the chart might be helpful. Venus retrograde is a time often of austerity. Managing resources, husbanding resources, coming up with plans to utilize resources in a way that they're actually supporting where you're trying to go. As opposed to with Venus retrograde, the question always is, are your resources working for you, or are you working for your expenses? So if I have a monthly dry cleaning bill of this, and I am subscribed to Amazon Prime and Hulu and 5 different streaming services, and this is how much I spend on food, and this is how much I do, and I'm trying to move in a certain direction, but I find that I can't because I'm spinning my wheels constantly just trying to keep up with my lifestyle. But my lifestyle, some part of this lifestyle is not necessary. Some part of this lifestyle is I don't even end up seeing Hulu for 3 months at a time, or the Netflix, they're just, money's just kind of going out on a monthly basis. But I'm trying to go somewhere. It could be that my lifestyle, I'm having to work extra hard to keep up with a certain lifestyle. In that process, I'm not being able to move in the direction that I want to be able to move and design the life that I want. And so my expenses and my relationships need to be reviewed and brought in line so that once Venus goes direct, I am more aligned. And as I said, something needs to be tied up, sorted out, stabilized in the Pisces part of the chart. And this is where that new moon in Pisces video will be helpful. A 4-week period during March to take action to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment in such a way that when Venus and Mercury retrograde back into Pisces in April, they can tie up the loose ends and compromises and agreements can be reached. Once that is done, and once Mercury and Venus move back into Aries, you can actually move forward towards creating a future state with fewer energy leaks. That's all I have to say for today. I am going to do a weekly overview on Sunday or Monday. I'm going to give you a warning. There isn't a lot to say astrologically next week, but at the same time, you could say that there's not a lot going on astrologically next week, but there's a lot going on astrologically, which is again why that Pisces new moon video will be helpful. And I'll cover it in the weekly overview. There might just be one aspect going exact, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot going on astrologically right now. Then we'll talk about Mars going direct and starting to gather some momentum, and then we'll talk about the lunar eclipse. Those of you who are considering becoming a member, don't be, because the Pisces new moon happened yesterday, the fact that some of the sign-specific content is coming out by Sunday, don't assume that that content is not relevant. The moon is still dark. We are on the other side of the new moon. It's not about the next 3 or 4 days. It's about the next 3 or 4 weeks. It's about the next 2 months. It's about the Pisces part of the chart till February 26 and even February 27. All right, if you're interested in readings, becoming a member, all that information is in the description box below. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you subscribe, there's this whole bell icon business. Right on top, when you subscribe, there'll be a wiggly bell. Click on that and you'll be notified when I do new videos. There's a thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to the channel. Information on donations is in the description box. If you want to contribute to the channel for free, you can like the video or comment on it. Likes and comments give the video greater circulation on YouTube. I will leave it at that. There's more to come and more to follow. Thank you everyone for your support. I hope, even though we're going to be talking in a few days, I hope you're some of you may already be feeling the Venus retrograde in terms of austerity, financial tightness, those kinds of themes. Already Venus, but again, what the experience is going to be for people who have Venus retrograde in their birth charts, whether they're going to feel somehow less restricted and more aligned financially, whether they actually get breaks or ideas on abundance. I'm very curious about that. So if you have Venus retrograde in your birth chart, I would love to know what the next 6 weeks are like for you. How do they feel more aligned if they do? See, Mercury goes retrograde 3 or 4 times a year. I get enough data about Mercury retrograde from my Mercury retrograde clients. Venus goes retrograde once every couple of years or once every 18 months or so. Mars goes retrograde once every couple of years. So it's a little harder. It's a smaller percentage of people, so it's a little harder, and those windows are tighter, so it's a little harder to really reflect on what alignment for a Venus retrograde person during Venus retrograde transit or Mars retrograde person during a Mars retrograde transit actually looks or feels like. And I am a data person. I really want to know not just what is prevailing best practice knowledge and what has been written and what is being taught. I want to know whether there's any truth behind what these transits are actually about. I hope you're excited about the astrology of March and April, even though it's a little terrifying. But change is necessary. And yeah, as I've been saying, a lot about the astrology just suggests that the status quo of 23 and 24 will no longer hold, and the life we want is on the other side of these changes. Even as early as moving towards the life we want as a result of the March 29th solar eclipse in Aries. If you have Mercury retrograde, you might feel that eclipse the week before after March 29th. I've said this a lot of times on this channel. If you have Mercury direct, you may feel it more as you move through April and in May and as you head to the end of the first week of June. That's it. I'm starting to ramble. I will see you guys soon in 2 or 3 days' time. Take care.